The letter came in a red envelope sealed with wax. No name, no sender, just a time and address. When I arrived at the gates of St. Augustine Psychiatric Institute, the air felt too still, like the building itself was holding its breath. Dr. Samuel Rhodes, head psychiatrist, was found dead inside his locked office. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, just a cup of untouched coffee, an open patient file, and a broken wristwatch stopped at 3:17 a.m. The local police labeled it a suicide, but the board wanted certainty and deniability. That's why they called me. I examined the office. A faint metallic scent lingered in the air. Blood, but none visible. The security footage for that wing? Deleted. Backup drives? Corrupted. A coincidence, they said. I never believed in coincidences. The file on his desk belonged to patient number 43, Ava M. Lorne. Admitted 6 months ago, diagnosed with paranoid delusions and selective mutism. She hadn't spoken a word in weeks. But as I left the room, a nurse whispered, "She's been asking for you, by name." I had never met Ava Lorne, not in this life. The hallway to the restricted wing was quiet, too quiet. Doors lined each side like coffins stood on end. A single bulb flickered overhead as I walked toward room 17. That number again. The nurse, pale and hesitant, handed me a clipboard. "She stopped eating yesterday, keeps writing your name on the walls with chalk, sometimes in reverse." The door creaked open. Inside, Ava Lorne sat cross-legged on the mattress, head tilted, eyes locked on the corner of the room where nothing existed. She looked no older than 20, but there was something in her posture, rigid, calculating. The walls were covered in symbols, spirals, and my name, over and over, Schatten. "I've never been here before," I said aloud, more to myself than to her. Ava slowly turned her head. For a moment I thought she might speak, but she only reached under her pillow and pulled out a torn Polaroid. My photo, old, creased, and on the back a single sentence, scrawled in jagged ink, "You're already part of this." I asked the nurse how she got the photo. "She had it when she was admitted," she whispered, "but that was in 1997. Impossible. I was in Berlin in 97, working a case involving a cult, and yet here I was, and so was the photo." That night, I took Ava's file back to my quarters. Her history was fragmented. Multiple institutions, inconsistencies in records, and some entries outright blacked out. The most bizarre detail? Her birth year changed across 3 documents. 3 versions of Ava. Or one Ava in 3 different timelines. I studied the Polaroid again. The eyes looking back at me were mine, but older, tired. The photo was wrinkled, aged, but how could it exist? Back in 97, I worked a case in Berlin involving a cult, Der Kreis der Erinnerung. They believed the human mind could be severed from linear time. Their symbols matched the ones Ava had scrawled on her walls. spirals, inverted triangles, broken clock faces, almost perfectly. It made no sense, and yet I couldn't ignore the overlap. The next morning, I descended into the Institute's sub-level archive, the place they stored redacted or lost files. As I stepped into the cold corridor, the lights above flickered. At the far end of the hallway, I saw a figure standing still, watching. I aimed my flashlight toward them. No one was there. But on the wall, scrawled in chalk, one word remained: returned. The smell of mildew and rust thickened as I stepped deeper into the archive. No cameras, no staff, just rows of metal drawers, each one humming with the quiet weight of forgotten names. A heavy silence hung in the air, as if the walls were listening. Room B3, the oldest section. Inside, cabinets were chained shut, but one stood slightly ajar. Inside, I found Ava's original intake report from 1997, filed under a different name, Emily Rhodes. That last name, Dr. Samuel Rhodes, the man found dead. Her father? No. The intake form listed him as her uncle, but the photo attached to the file showed him holding Ava, aged 6, in front of this very facility. The caption on the back? Patient 0. I reached for the second folder behind it. The moment my fingers touched the paper, the lights blew out. A sound, soft at first, echoed through the vents. A hum, then a whisper. Schatten. The archive door slammed shut behind me. I grabbed my lighter, only to reveal a new message scratched into the cabinet metal, one that hadn't been there seconds ago. You left her once. Don't do it again. By morning, the archive door was unlocked again. No sign of forced entry. The scratched message on the cabinet? Gone. As if the metal had never been touched. But I knew what I saw and what I felt. Something in that basement was awake. I went to the staff records room. If Samuel Rhodes really was Ava's uncle, it should be there. The clerk, a man with hands that trembled too much for a Monday, retrieved a dusty file. Dr. Rhodes had worked at the Institute for over 20 years. But there was a gap. From 1996 to 2002, no records, no notes, not even a signature. Just a red stamp across those years. Level 6 clearance. There was no Level 6. I walked back toward Ava's room. On the wall outside, in faint pencil, someone had drawn a circle with 3 overlapping triangles, the same symbol from the Berlin cult, and beneath it, my name, again and again. Inside, Ava sat up straight. Her eyes met mine for the first time. Then, without opening her mouth, I heard her voice inside my head. You brought it with you. You opened the door. The hallway behind me darkened, and I realized this wasn't her delusion. It was mine. I demanded a neurological assessment for Ava. The director hesitated but eventually agreed. Observation room 3 was prepped. Glass walls, audio feed, vitals monitor. I sat behind the mirror, eyes fixed on the girl who somehow knew my name, my face, my thoughts. Ava was wired for monitoring, electrodes tracing the terrain of her mind. The machine hummed, then stuttered. Waves of static flooded the screen. "Interference," the technician said, "signals bouncing like she's picking up a transmission." Then the lights flickered and Ava looked directly at the mirrored glass, at me. Suddenly I heard it again, her voice, clear this time. "You're not watching me, I'm watching you." The mirror cracked from the center outward. Emergency lights snapped on. The feed went black. The technician collapsed, eyes rolling, murmuring one word over and over, "Schatten." He had never heard my name before. I rushed into the room. Ava was unconscious, pulse stable, but her hand clutched something tightly. I pried it open, another photo of me. But this one wasn't old, it was taken yesterday. Standing at the front gate of St. Augustine. My posture, my coat, the red envelope in my hand. Who was watching who, and when exactly had this case begun? I didn't sleep, couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photo, me standing at the gate, the envelope in my hand. But the angle, it wasn't surveillance, it was taken from above, like a memory captured mid-thought. The next morning, I found myself drawn to Corridor C, Room 12. I didn't know why. A patient sat inside, male, elderly, face weathered like old leather, eyes sharp despite the haze of time. No name on the door, just the number and a small note scribbled in red ink. He remembers. I stepped in. The man looked up and grinned like he'd been expecting me. "You're late," he rasped. "Again." "I don't know you," I said. "You will," he replied, tapping his temple. "You left a piece of yourself here. In '97. You remember Berlin?" My heart froze. He handed me a matchbox. Inside a key, old, brass, engraved with 3 spirals. "Room 44, he whispered, "where they kept her before she had a name." "Who?" He smiled. "The girl who made time forget." I turned to leave. When I looked back, the bed was empty. There was no patient. After leaving Corridor C, I made my way to the East Wing, boarded up, weather-worn, and removed from all current schematics. The hallway reeked of decay and dust. Overhead lights buzzed weakly, as if electricity reached here only reluctantly. The key from the matchbox turned easily in the lock, too easily for a door untouched in years. Inside, the temperature dropped sharply. Time didn't feel linear in this part of the building. My watch had stopped ticking the moment I stepped inside. Footsteps echoed in pairs, mine and something else trailing just behind. Yet no one was there. Room 44 waited at the end of the hall. Its placard was rusted blank, but the door opened on command. Within lay an unsettling kind of order. Circles drawn on the walls in charcoal, spirals etched into the wooden floor. Not random, patterned, ritualistic. At the center stood a rusted gurney. A scorched metal plate rested on top, marred by chemical burns. In the center of the plate was one word, deeply carved: Schatten. Shadows moved where they shouldn't. The air pulsed, as if the room breathed. A journal sat on a stool in the corner, leather-bound and cracked with age. The first page had been ripped out. The second bore Ava's handwriting. The more you remember, the more becomes real. My name was no longer just on the walls. It was part of the architecture. I don't remember leaving room 44. I only remember waking up on the floor of my quarters, shirt damp with sweat, knuckles bruised, and the journal clutched tight in my hand. The pages now flickered between Ava's writing and unfamiliar entries. Entries in my own handwriting. But I hadn't written them. One passage described a recurring dream, a spiral staircase leading to a locked vault, inside which a child sat humming. Her face was always obscured, until now. Last night, in the dream, it was Ava, or someone wearing her shape. My hands trembled as I turned the next page. Taped to it was another photo. My back was to the camera, standing inside room 44. But what chilled me wasn't the photo, it was what stood behind me. A second version of myself. I ran to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, stared hard into the mirror. For a split second, my reflection didn't move. It blinked before I did. Down the hallway, a patient began screaming. I rushed to the source, room 17. Ava was convulsing, her mouth foaming, the symbol on her wall glowing faintly, like embers in reverse. Then her eyes snapped open, and she whispered one word, one I hadn't told anyone here: Berlin. Whatever this was, it was following its own timeline now. The word Berlin echoed in my mind like a detonated memory. That single whisper from Ava shattered what little distance I'd maintained from this case. There was no more neutrality. This wasn't coincidence, it was design. I accessed my old archive, a backup I'd buried in a fireproof box 5 years ago. Hidden under false credentials, filed under L. Weiss. Inside, field notes, maps, and 2 labeled cassette tapes. Tape 2, Kreuzberg, Confession. Classified, level red. I didn't remember recording a second tape. I dusted off an old player and pressed play. Static hissed through the speakers, then a voice, my own, began narrating events I didn't recall. Description of a girl found near an abandoned station, eyes glazed, drawing spirals into the mud. The name Ava never mentioned, but the detail identical. Halfway through, the audio cut to silence, followed by a faint breathing sound. Then, you left the gate open. I stopped the tape. Suddenly, the power in my room surged and died. My laptop screen lit up on its own. A single file opened, unlabeled. It displayed a CCTV loop of the Institute's entrance. Time code, 2 days ago. The camera caught me arriving, but for a second, there were 2 of me in the same frame, and only one walked inside. I couldn't stop watching the footage. 2 versions of me, side by side, for less than a second. One entered the facility, the other simply turned and walked back toward the woods. That night I followed his path. The trees at the edge of the property were skeletal, burned black by time or something older. I walked until I saw it, a small clearing I didn't remember, though it felt familiar. In its center stood a bench. On it, a photograph. My photograph. The same red envelope beside it. The envelope was empty this time, but the name printed on the front wasn't mine. It read, to the one who stayed. I returned to the institute, but the halls felt off, subtly rearranged, doors out of place, nurses I didn't recognize. Ava's room number had changed from 17 to 34. I asked the nurse in charge. She looked puzzled. "It's always been 34, she said. Inside, Ava was asleep, but on the wall was a new message, drawn in reverse. He chose not to enter. My headache returned, sharp, surgical. Time here wasn't looping, it was splitting. And something or someone was walking both lines at once. I looked at my hand. The scar on my right palm, an old mark from Berlin, was gone. And I wasn't sure which version of me had crossed back through the door. The Institute's original blueprints, buried deep in city archives, revealed something missing from every current floor plan. A tunnel network beneath the West Wing, labeled Therapy Expansion, abandoned 1971. No record of demolition, just forgotten space. I found the entrance sealed behind a rusted locker, the bolts old but recently disturbed. Beyond the door, stairs descending into cold, metallic silence. As I moved deeper, signals vanished. No light but my own. The walls shifted from cinder block to carved stone, ancient and sweating. Air thinned. The ground pulsed under my boots like a slow heartbeat rising from below. After what felt like hours, the corridor opened into a chamber. It was circular, vast, alive. The walls were covered in spirals, burned into stone, not drawn. In the center, a metallic chair connected to wires that led nowhere. On the ground lay a worn hospital bracelet. Patient number 43, Emily Rhodes. Ava's former identity. But it wasn't the bracelet that made my stomach turn. It was the skeleton slumped beside it, still wearing a lab coat. The ID badge read, Dr. Samuel Rhodes. He had died days ago upstairs. Now he was here, dried, long dead. I wasn't looking at a murder scene anymore. I was looking at a loop, a fracture, and I was standing at its center. I don't know how long I stood there, watching a corpse that shouldn't exist. The bones were real, the badge was real, the name was real, and yet Samuel Rhodes had only died 4 days ago. Upstairs, with coffee still warm. This one had been dead for years. I moved closer to the metallic chair. It wasn't designed for treatment. It was a containment unit. The wiring pattern resembled ancient sigils, not medical, ritualistic. The metal beneath the seat was scorched, and the shadows didn't behave naturally. As I examined the wall, my flashlight caught something behind a stone panel. A mirror, buried deep, not reflective, alive. The surface moved like liquid glass. I reached toward it and saw him, me. Not just similar, identical. Same coat, same scar, except his eyes. They didn't blink. They studied me like prey. I stepped back, heart racing, as the surface pulsed outward, stretching. A whisper filled the room, not through ears, but bone. Only one of you leaves. The floor beneath me shifted. Suddenly, I was no longer in the chamber. I was back in my room. Lights on, morning sun. Had I imagined it? No. The hospital bracelet still rested on my nightstand, and the mirror across the room, it was breathing. Everything feels quieter now. Not peaceful, just muted, as though reality itself is holding its breath before something inevitable. I haven't left my quarters since waking beside the bracelet, but things enter. Pages appear on the desk, handwritten notes in ink I don't own. They speak of events yet to happen, places I've never been, thoughts I haven't had yet. One message repeats in a slanted, shaking hand. You are where he was supposed to stay. I reviewed Ava's intake form again. This time, something was different. In the field marked emergency contact, a single name had been added, in my handwriting. H. Schatten. I never wrote that. My reflection no longer mirrors my movement perfectly. A second too slow. A grin that lingers longer than it should. I moved all the mirrors out of the room, but their weight still presses against me, like they're watching from behind the walls. Last night, I heard humming through the air vents, a tune from Berlin, one that played outside the station the night I first saw the spirals. I don't know if I'm remembering, or inventing, or dreaming someone else's life. But I do know this: there are two of us now, and one of us doesn't want to leave. There was no longer a distinction between memory and moment. The facility, the halls, the patients, they breathed in sync with me, or I with them. Time no longer unfolded, it folded inward. I returned to room 44 one last time. The chamber was silent now, still. But in the center stood a figure, not Ava, not Rhodes, me, older, silent, waiting. He reached out a hand, and I understood. This wasn't a haunting, it was an exchange. He had been trapped here, inside this fractured loop, since I first stepped through the gate. The second version of me, the one caught on the CCTV, had never entered. He had turned away. But I had walked in, and in doing so, I had taken his place. He smiled, a gesture full of mourning. As we touched palms, the chamber dissolved around us, spirals unraveled into light. I stood at the front gate again, alone, the institute behind me gone. No building, no file, just forest and fog. In my coat pocket, a photo. Ava, smiling, free, and on the back, one sentence: someone always has to stay.